7th. I'll bring the meeting to order, starting with a Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you.
And a roll call starting from my right.
Paul Sanders.
Chester Jaraki.
Vaughn Morgan.
Jim Ralston.
Chip Hussey. And we have a quorum, and the meeting is being recorded. Okay, under appointments, we have two tonight. The first is an appointment to the Recreation Committee, Mr. Jeff McNally. Is that you? Okay. Mr. McNally resides on Maple Drive for the last 12 years, is that right? Okay, great. And over the past 18 years has coached various sports activities as well as teaching 8th grade social studies. Not one of my best subjects back in the 8th grade. I wish I would have had been, but it wasn't. But your qualifications abound. Would you like to address the board?
Sure. I wanted to get involved in the town and the rec board. I've gone to several meetings and kind of wanted to help out in some way with the rec board, and so I wanted to join and just help out in the town. So.
Well, thank you. Any questions the board has for Mr. McNally? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that we approve Mr. McNally's application to be on the Recreation Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it will be a 3-year term ending in 2022.
Now, he needs to be sworn in?
Yeah.
I already talked to him about it.
You already talked to him about it? You're right on the ball, aren't you?
Oh. You ain't getting no brownies. Forget it.
All right, Craswell.
Forget it.
All right, the second appointment is with Mr. Alan Gould from Municipal Resources, which is an independent agency the town has hired to aid us in the search for a town administrator. Mr. Gould
It's not here
is
yet.
not here yet. Okay, so we'll put him off.
I had told him a little bit later because we had another appointment that had been
Yeah,
scheduled.
okay, all right. Let's move on to the approval of minutes from December 10th.
I move to approve the minutes of Monday, December 10th, 2018 as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Minutes from December 24th.
I move to approve the minutes of Monday, December 24th as written. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And I will abstain as I wasn't there.
Right, and neither was Mr. Ralston.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice try.
So we need a different second. I'm sorry. We need a different second, Vaughn.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay,
You're on the wrong side of it.
all right. Makes sense.
That was the 20-minute meeting we did on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Okay, under old business, let's review the Copley update.
Okay, with Copley update, the biggest thing that's happening right now is one that the City of Portsmouth was supposed to do their presentation today on the water line. They presented it to the last City Council meeting in Portsmouth. The City Council decided they needed a little bit more information and wanted the follow-up tonight as well. So they've postponed us for a later date. And as a result, they know that it's too late. If the board was going to consider a warrant article for any part of continuing the engineering, whatever, it is now too late.
Okay.
We don't have those numbers from them. The other new thing that's happened is DES has proposed new guidelines for PFOA and PFOS. They are going through a public hearing process before they get confirmed, but they are recommending a PFOA level of 38 parts per trillion, where currently the limit is 70 parts per trillion. To date, we have no residences that have tested over 38 either.
Okay.
For PFOA, we've had the highest have been in the teens. And then a combined level of PFOA, PFOS at 70 parts per trillion. some of the different legislators had really been pushing for combined, all the various PFCs to be all added together to either be at 70 or even a number lower than that. And DES is only proposing that PFOA and PFOS combined numbers can't exceed the 70.
Okay. Yes.
Dennis Malloy. May I ask a question? I'm a little unclear. Are those guidelines for private wells or are they public water?
Drinking water standards.
Drinking water standards.
So it would affect both.
So it does affect private?
Both, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And they're being proposed as administrative rules,
right.
so it'll take about 6 months to go through the process before they're finally adopted, and they may be a different number.
There was some confusion, some folks that I talked to, that's why I wanted to get it clear here so that we, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
And I know efforts will be underway to get that number even lower.
Yeah, there are, yes. Yeah, let's get that number lower, yeah.
Paul, anything on your end?
Not additional to that, I can tell you that we still are being talked about heavily at the Drinking Water Groundwater Advisory Commission, together with the St. Cobain issues over in the Litchfield area. So we're still on the radar.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the board? Comments? All right, let's review the warrant articles.
The warrant articles that you see now are currently in a funding order, the highest amount to the lowest with non-money articles at the end. To date, we have received no petition warrant articles. The deadline is 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
The board can control the order of the articles other than the bond and the operating budget. So if the board tonight wants to move articles around, they can. The budget committee will get these tomorrow, and they'll get to review it prior to the public hearing as well.
Okay.
Can we, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can we just talk a little bit about the unreserved fund balance?
Yes.
And the reason that's important is we should decide if any of these proposed warrant articles should be funded out of a portion of that or not.
Right. So the undesignated fund balance as of 12/31 was 1.8 million. And I'll just do these in rounder numbers, 1.8 million. The town the board voted from fund balance in 2018, various deposits of 273,000. Voted to reduce the 2018 tax rate was 150,000, leaving a balance of 1.4 million. That's a very good 8% number for the town to maintain. It's 1.4 to 1.5 million. When I did this, the estimated 2018 surplus was 350,000. I updated the numbers 20 minutes ago from this manifest that has some 2018 bills in it. So the unexpended operating budget is approximately 319,000.
Okay.
So not 350, so 319,000. Estimated excess revenues is 0. I don't anticipate our revenues will exceed our estimate by much. We really try to estimate our revenues when we do the tax rate as accurate as we can. The town clerk, the tax collector actually looks to see what motor vehicle registrations are still coming in. So we have that as a pretty solid number. So very safely, the board could use 250,000 to put into various accounts. I anticipate, and that would wash it and still give a $50,000 to $75,000 increase to fund balance.
Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't go over 250. But it's up to you guys.
Okay. I'd like to discuss Article 11. I think there was
Okay,
a
yeah.
suggestion
Yep, this has been the standard article that we've had every year for $3,000 from the Fire Ambulance Fund to cover the ComStar billing costs. Our ambulance runs and revenue are increasing all the time. This year, we were a little bit short on it, so we're recommending that we increase that article to $4,500. And then it's a withdrawal from the special revenue fund of the same amount of $4,500. It's a wash, but it's a good thing for us to do. And the chief is also looking into increasing all the ambulance rates again for the 2018 Medicare rates. And he's looking at another company to take over the billing.
And I've spoken to the chief, and he's favorable about this too. I think it's a good idea myself.
Okay.
It's a
And-
wash article,
No tax impact.
no
Right.
tax impact at all.
Okay, so as we go through here, based upon the draft we have now, how much is coming out of our unreserved fund balance?
The only thing that I've plugged in at this point coming out of fund balance is number 13 for the road improvement capital reserve. And to do the DRA portal, I had to plug a number in. So right now that article says 50 just to have a placeholder number.
Okay. So I guess as we go back through any of these others, we got to determine if any of these others should come out of fund balance.
Do we want to start at the beginning?
Yeah,
Article 2.
Mr. Gould came in.
yes.
Article 2 is the bond. This is the wording as established by DRA. There's not a lot we can do to it. It has to stay above the budget.
Mhm.
Because actually, this is the first year there is no zoning articles at all.
Right.
So it will be a short ballot. So Article 3 is the operating budget. These are the numbers that the Budget Committee has so far. After public hearing Thursday, obviously those numbers could change. So Article 4 is the school resource officer for $77,500. That's 9 months of the position.
Okay.
General fund.
That is what it is, but I suppose we ought to make a conscious decision in or out of fund balance. I would say this should not go out of fund balance.
Correct, because it'll be a continuing annual expense, and it will increase the following year.
Okay.
All right, Article 5 is the fire station siding and windows. That's established right now at $74,000. We had the estimate of $56,000 for the siding. We've gotten several estimates in now, 3 more estimates on replacing the existing windows and replacing 2 of the steel doors. So this $74,000, I think, is still a good number.
That's 2 of the steel door panels or 2 of the complete doors?
Complete doors.
You did the panels, that look right.
Yeah, it's just the panels over on the highway
That's what I'm
garage.
confused.
Mhm. Okay.
This is $74,000. Taxation or a designated fund balance?
I would say taxation, I guess primarily because I disagree with the article.
I would have it come out of the reserve, but there's other things here too. The reason is we're looking for a new fire station. If we're not going to take care of our buildings, I wouldn't give you one.
So you'd like to see it come out of the reserve?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. See what that does first.
would say out of the reserve.
Okay.
And I would just say, please make that tentative until you get down to roads.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Chester?
Yeah, I agree with Chester, Jim.
Okay.
All right, I'll mark 74 in. Fire department gear is $60,000 to purchase the second set of gear, and this is already designated to come out of the ambulance special revenue fund. The next one, Article 7, is again a position, so it should come out of the regular taxation. This is for the full-time groundskeeper position.
Mhm.
Article 8 is the LED lighting conversion, which is $24,311 for the town hall and the police station. Because we're getting a good percentage of that back from Eversource, it should probably stay as taxation.
When you say we're getting it back, we're upfronting $24,000.
And then we're getting a rebate from Eversource after that.
Monthly?
No, when the project is complete, we'll get a check, just like we did for the streetlights.
Okay, and what do you think the amount would be?
I think it's $7,500.
Okay, so the net is going to be somewhere around 17 or so.
Right, but we have to raise and appropriate the total.
Yes, oh yeah. Okay, so taxation?
I would, because then it makes it cleaner, that we can offset that expense.
Okay.
Conservation,
Yep.
okay, the Conservation Commission activities, this is $10,000 as a non-lapsing 3-year fund.
Chip?
Taxation,
Right now, I go taxation with that till we see the other stuff.
I agree.
okay.
Okay.
Police Station Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, this is going to be a new CRF for the roof, major infrastructure things, and it's $5,000.
I go out of reserve for that.
Out of the
Reserve.
unreserved?
Yep.
Fund balance?
It's a savings account, it's an appropriate place.
That's what it's for, yeah.
It's just a transfer, savings to savings.
When the big stuff breaks.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Ambulance billing, we've already discussed increasing that to $4,500, and that's the ambulance special revenue fund. Article 12 is the police equipment for the $2,000 to be added to the police equipment capital reserve. That's the bulletproof vest savings account.
I think it's operational, I would go taxation.
Consensus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine with that.
All right,
Yeah.
13 is the one that we generally have used undesignated fund balance, road improvement capital reserve fund. So if we have $250 available, we've basically only designated so far 80.
I definitely go out of reserve, it's a good idea.
And how much? I've got 50 just as a placeholder.
We don't have any articles left here that would use any reserve.
Nope.
Okay, if you do that, you haven't reserved anything for reduction of taxation later on.
Right.
And so, when it comes time to setting tax rate in the fall, you will have used all of your reserve, which you're going to need it for roads, there's no question, you're going to need it. But I mean, you won't have any unless you have some additional revenue that's unexpected.
We used 150,000 last year to
Right.
reduce the tax rate.
Yeah.
If we safely used 250, we basically used 125. So leaves you another 125,000. If you set aside even 75,000 to reduce the tax rate next year, you could easily change that 50 to 100, or any number in between,
It's a
depending
judgment,
on what you want.
it's a judgment call.
Right.
Mhm.
There will be another tax increase next year, because we'll feel the full
Right.
impact from the library bond.
I think we should put some aside to reduce taxes.
I think we should too. I agree with you.
See, I just drove down Bayside Road, I think we can put 50 in the reserve fund for the roads anyway, out of the reserve.
And that leaves us how much?
125.
Yeah, it is one judgment call, it looked like the whole road had been bombed.
Yeah. No, I would agree with Jim too. We should put some aside for that.
Leave it at the 50.
That's what I would say.
And that will,
That leaves you 125,000 that you can use to offset taxes.
all right, we have to,
Oh, you don't do that until September.
okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
And that undesignated fund balance number it will be different than the estimate right now.
These are just estimates, but that's prudent.
Yeah. Okay.
So the rest of them are non-money articles, but we can review them just so that you know. Article 14 is amending the service-connected total disability credit. and the board opted to go from 2,000 to 3,000. And modify the veterans credit, and the board opted to go from the 500 to 600. And then Article 16, adopt the solar exemption.
Great. Do you wish to add one to authorize putting tax impact on the warrant?
I did bring that information. At the planning board, it was discussed that they wanted to see the impact of the tax rate on each warrant article. The town has not yet adopted the article to do that, but we can add that as Article 17. It would be, shall the town vote to authorize the insertion of an estimated tax impact of warrant articles on the official ballot as authorized by RSA 32.5.5B.
You do put that onto the little handout
It's in the
also,
voter's
right?
guide, correct,
The change is it would be printed right on the warrant.
Mhm.
and the ballot.
Yes.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too. So I'd like to move that we add that proposed language to our warrant.
And I'll second it.
Okay, Bob, you want to say
Yeah,
something?
Bob Fresco. We did that a couple of years ago, Karen, didn't we?
Not on the ballot,
Not on the ballot?
no.
Okay.
And if we did, it wasn't legal, so, no, but we didn't
Well,
do
it's
it.
legal issues, okay.
No, it's not legal.
How much money have you decided to, on the roads? 50 or
50.
50,000?
50, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Rail trail agreement.
Right, Mr. Gould is here, do you want to jump back in?
Is what?
Mr.
Oh, yes,
Gould
let's definitely do that. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank
is- Which works out well because Mr. Vogel, Scott Vogel is not here yet to do rail trails. So,
Okay.
perfect timing.
If you can, just for the rest of the people here, if you can just basically give us an idea of what MRI does and what you're doing for us.
Sure. So MRI's been in business for almost 30 years. My name's Alan Gould. I'm the president of the company. I haven't been with the company 30 years. And we do interim placements. We have consulting staff on any given day. There might be 20 of us that are out in the field doing various things. I happen to do an awful lot of recruitments. Right now I have 3 or 4 going in New Hampshire. We have a couple going in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Seems like all the senior management types are retiring out, so they're needing us to either fill them on an interim basis or to do screening processes, recruitment screening processes for those positions. In the last probably 3 or 4 months in Mass alone, we've just finished Hanover, Mass, Dartmouth, Mass, Lexington, Mass, Acton, Mass, and Bedford, Mass, and we're working on Concord, Mass right now. In New Hampshire, I've just done Stratham, Hollis, Amherst. I'm doing Atkinson, obviously Greenland, and Northfield. So very busy time right now. It's like musical chairs to some degree. And that's what you've engaged me to do, is help you get through that recruitment selection process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just so everybody knows, MRI also aided us in doing a study on the fire department, which is a very thorough study which has helped us move that particular project along also.
I happen to just live next door. I'm in Rye. I was the police chief there and town administrator, and left 10 years ago for this job. So I'm doing this. This is neighborly, kind of. This is the closest one I'll ever be able to do. The rest of the time, I'm on the road, so the price we offered you really reflects that, and I appreciate being able to eat dinner at home and then come over here for this meeting and still make it home in time to get to bed at a reasonable hour. So.
Okay, great. So where do we stand so far as
So your deadline is next week. I think it's Monday, this 14th, I think.
Mhm.
I finished scoring everybody that's in the pool so far. We brought it up to date today. You have 20 candidates. That's about in line with what we've been doing. The pools are being really tight now. It's really tough to find qualified people for these positions. You've got this void. You've got people, my age and a little older, sometimes a little younger, that are retiring out. And then there's this gap because people didn't go into this kind of employment for about 12 or 15 years. So now we've got people that are more entry level that have been someplace maybe a couple of years, and they're looking to step up, they're looking to make a lateral transfer, something like that. So the pools are tough right now, especially for experienced folks. So 20 is a half decent number. There were probably, out of that group, there's what I would probably consider 4 keepers at this point, maybe 5, in looking at it this evening. That's not all that unusual. You're only hiring 1. So all we want to make sure is that there are a couple of good people standing at the end so that you have a selection.
Okay.
Occasionally we get to the end and there's just nobody there that either I think is qualified for the job, or if we make it even to you folks, that you folks may think is qualified for the job, and we go out again with the advertising. Because, I don't want to see you hire somebody that isn't going to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, any questions the board has for Mr. Gould?
I know the board had concerns on what the next step was going to be as far as the board has had discussion about wanting to have a community panel or an employee panel listen to the interviews or participate with questions.
Mm-hmm. What is, I know you've been doing this for a while now, what is your suggestion on it?
Well, my suggestion is that you folks, you're the appointing authority.
Mm-hmm.
You're the people that have to do the hiring. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to forget that anybody else helped out, anybody else was involved. So, I like to keep it a pretty direct process. I'm happy to meet with your department heads individually and get input from them. We're happy to open up an email address where residents can contact us directly and send us kind of what they're thinking. I can appreciate, you thinking about opening up the interviews for people to listen to. In New Hampshire, usually those interviews are done in non-public because many of these people may be already employed happily someplace else. Mm-hmm. And, once it's out in the public in mass, the interviews with the hiring body have to be in public. It's all executive session up until then. So, that's really up to you folks, what you'd like to do. So in Amherst and Hollis, it was just the boards of selectmen, and when I use this efficient process, as I refer to it to, the one that you folks have agreed to, it usually goes from me to the board, so to speak, to the hiring body. In Stratham, they had, I think that the board asked 2 or 3 people from the community to join them in their non-public interview. Mm-hmm. Just people that they were interested in their input after sitting and listening, and they were able to ask their own questions, and that allowed the board to be able to observe how they responded and whatnot as well.
Okay.
So we can do it any way you'd like. Sometimes if there's a local candidate, getting other people involved can complicate things because there may be they're either liked or they're not liked, or so that's one more reason I try to keep it rather direct with the board.
Sure. Okay. All right. Questions? Any?
I agree with him on that. I think we've hired him and we've been elected here. I think it's our job to make the final decision.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with that. Paul?
That's fine.
Yeah. Jim?
Definitely. Jim, I agree.
I like the idea of the email from outside comment.
Okay.
Yeah, that couldn't hurt.
Got what?
That couldn't hurt.
Okay. All right.
And we can promote that, we can put that on Facebook, that if any residents or employees have particular things they'd like to see, to email.
I can tell you right now what that'd like to be if you'd like to start to promote that. So it would be Greenland TA Recruitment at mrigov.com. The other thing that would be helpful to me is if I could do a quick phone call with each one of you if you have time at some point, just so that I can better understand, what I like to hear are what are the challenges that you all feel from your perspectives are going to be challenging to the administrator coming in. What are those challenges that the community faces? Because we'd like to find a candidate that has had experience maybe with those challenges or that's better fitted to meet those challenges. And usually if I try to do that in an open meeting, you know, people might not be as open and candid. The other thing is sometimes you telegraph your answers so that if are you televised? No, okay, so that helps. In a lot of places you televise, so if a candidate goes on and it's coming, and they'll double like the meeting, right? If it's on camera, then the candidates can go in and listen to what you had to say, and sometimes you telegraph the answer, and then they're just telling you what they think you want to hear rather than.
And I think that's a good idea myself. I mean, I personally would like to talk to you one-on-one. I think all of us would feel that way.
Yep. So I think you all have my email and phone number, because I sent that out a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So just feel free to call me. That's my cell phone number that I gave you. So call me, and if I'm not getting ready for a conference call or I'm not with a client, we can talk right then and there. Otherwise, shoot me an email, or if I can't take the phone call, we'll just set up an appointment. It only takes 15 or 20 minutes.
That's right.
And what I'm really looking for are those skill sets and those personal attributes that you're really looking for and the challenges that are facing the community. Those are the important things for me, because those are going to trickle out in the essay questions. So what's going to happen is on the 14th, it closes, right? And that's where we have kind of the course filter. And that's where I'm going to look at people from their backgrounds and decide whether or not they're worth taking forward or not. And I'd like to send out 5 essay questions that are based on kind of the input that you folks give me.
Fine.
And my own experience in trying to determine who might be good. You know, and I was a town administrator in a similar town, so I get that. So we'll send out those 5 essay questions. We give them about 10 days to respond, always over a weekend. We always include a weekend in there because some of these people do work. And we score those essays. And then we would do a preliminary background check on them. Most of these people are public, or they're known, or we know them through our network. Good, bad, or indifferent. And then I'll do a phone call with them just to further vet them, talk about any kind of baggage that we may find when we do our little checks, and really talk about their motives and whether they're a real candidate or not. Make sure that they understand the salary, because we don't want to have anybody sitting there at the end that we can't close a deal with. Right. You know, all those things. And at that point, we'd be able to narrow down that number to a very manageable number. I would say 3 to 5 to break the interview. And if I don't find at least a couple of people, I mean, if I find one that I think is the perfect candidate, then I'll encourage you to interview that person, and maybe somebody else wouldn't, because I don't want you to miss that one. But if I don't think there's anybody there, I'll circle back to you folks and say, I think we need to go out and take another look.
Okay.
You know, I hope that doesn't happen. It's very unusual, but occasional.
Okay, then I would recommend the board, each one of us, getting in touch with Mr. Gould within the next week and give him our input, and we'll make that happen the way you like to see it happen, because it sounds good to me.
That'd be great. And if you don't have time for a phone call and you want to shoot me an email, you know, you've got my email address.
Yeah.
Better to come directly to me rather than through the community email.
Right.
Because I'll just get it myself. So that would be fantastic if we could do that. That'll really help me fine tune the screening.
Good.
All right. Anything else?
No. No?
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you.
You've
Well,
given us
super.
a direction to take, and that sounds good to all of us.
Thank you. I can almost walk home.
Thank you.
If it wasn't so close, maybe I would. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Karen,
Yes, sir.
get a visitor from the RPC.
Awesome, we'll get you a spot. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Rocky. Sounds like, just from listening to this, with the process that's going on, by the time someone maybe starts, it could be close to February the 1st. What's going to happen during the time from, Karen, what's your last day?
Friday.
Right.
Good question.
So what's the
And,
transition?
And that was the next thing I was going to
okay.
bring up. So that's a very good question, all right? We need an interim town administrator to fill in during that particular period of time. Now, I've talked to Karen, and Karen is willing to fill in. She has a good grasp of what's going on in town and everything else. I think it would probably, and from my perspective, be the best move to take.
It would not be on a full-time basis.
No, she'd come in a couple of days a week.
Right.
She would attend the meetings here at night and help us during the sessions at the school and things like that.
Right. My initial plan would be Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that on Thursdays I could get the agenda ready. Residents that may have come in on the opposite days can be told, if they need to talk to the town administrator, they can come back on either Tuesday or Thursday. And then we'd get Charlotte and I would work together on Thursdays like we do now, get the packets ready and the agenda finalized, and then I would come to the meeting on Monday night. But I do need the other days in between to interview and my other job.
Right.
I think the other clarification we talked about is you'd be treated as a part-time employee.
Correct. I've prepared a letter for the board that it would be a part-time employee, temporary with no benefits whatsoever. Maximum of 30 hours per week to assist in preparation of deliberative session on February 2nd. Fill out the appropriate Department of Revenue forms and just maintain the continuity. Honestly, once deliberative session happens on February 2nd, there's not a lot of technical work that takes place between there and the voting day on my end. That's when it all shifts to the town clerk, and she's got to do the ballot and candidates, and it switches to getting ready for the voting. And then there's another form to be done once the voting is complete.
And just so the public understands, we talked about part-time versus independent contractor because as a part-time employee, we're able to keep her on and indemnified, and therefore we don't have extra expenses to anyone for insurance.
Right. I plan to stay. I don't plan to retire from municipal government, and I plan to get another job. So it's not practical for me to get indemnity insurance and a performance bond to help out for 6 weeks, because I won't do that.
So that structure is a win-win for everybody.
What would need to be determined is what the hourly rate would be. My current hourly rate is 38 plus benefits. And this would be with no benefits. And I'm willing to do what the board recommends.
And I have no problem with that rate at all. I think that if we were to get an interim in, I personally think that would cost
A lot more than 38?
more than that.
Right.
So.
Are you willing to work for 38, or do you want to get bumped up so that?
I would appreciate it being a little higher. You're advertised at $82,000 for the new person, which is $40.
Right, that's without benefits.
That's without
So,
benefits.
Benefits are worth something an hour.
So, are you happy with $40?
I would accept that, if that was the board's agreement.
I make a motion that we agree to this part-time employment at a rate of $40 per hour.
And I would second that.
The motion is second. Does that answer your question, Martin?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. All right, let's get on to the rail trail agreement.
Okay, and Scott Vogel from RPC called me this afternoon and offered to come and explain things for us, which I certainly appreciate. So he is here. I handed out a copy of the newsletter, the flyer that he sent over this afternoon about the benefits of the rail trail. Basically, the environmental, health, safety, fitness on the rail trail itself. The biggest difference that's happened since the meeting we had last summer on the rail trail is now the state of New Hampshire is applying for a CMAQ grant, which, as far as I understand, is pretty much guaranteed as long as they get these 4 towns to agree to the maintenance agreement. So Greenland no longer has to contribute this big number to develop the rail trail and build it. It will be built and all the infrastructure done by the state of New Hampshire. And the town is committing to the maintenance agreement. And it's only the routine maintenance, which includes weed and brush control, cleaning ditches, unblocking or maintaining the culvert, cleaning graffiti, trail signage, trash and debris removal, trail surfacing, which is only just filling in like ruts.
Do we have an added insurance cost?
No, we do not. We don't own the property. it would be owned, maintained, the ownership would be maintained with the state of New Hampshire. Paul had an earlier question regarding enforcement.
Certainly. I'm Scott Vogel. I'm a senior transportation planner with the Rockingham Planning Commission. This is a project we've been involved with for about 10 years. I don't know how much background the board has on the trail. Back in 2008, all of the corridor communities worked with Rockingham Planning Commission. We got a technical assistance grant from the National Park Service to come up with a conceptual design and implementation plan for New Hampshire's section of the East Coast Greenway. And so the East Coast Greenway is envisioned as a 3,000-mile long multi-use path running from the Canadian border up in Calais, Maine, all the way down to Key West. This would be a non-motorized path separated from traffic, intended to be a safe place that folks of all ages can get out and walk or ride a bicycle. The off-road route has been identified as the Hampton Branch Rail Corridor, the old Eastern Railroad line. That's already being developed as rail trail in northern Massachusetts. It's the same rail line that the Newburyport commuter rail service runs on, but in Newburyport, from the T station northward, that has been developed as rail trail up to the Merrimack River. Salisbury has developed it from the Merrimack River north to Mudnock Road, about 1.25 miles, and is just starting in on a construction project to complete it to the New Hampshire state border. That'll be done next year. So the state of New Hampshire already owns from the Massachusetts border up to just south of Foss Manufacturing in Hampton. So about 4.5 miles. State has been in negotiations for about 4 years, 5 years now, with Pan Am Railway to purchase the 9.6 miles from Foss north to Portsmouth. And apparently in the last several months, there's been a breakthrough in those negotiations. The corridor communities had worked with their legislative delegation and DOT to secure federal, it's called Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program funding, or CMAQ funding, to buy the corridor and to build a basic stone dust rail trail. And so those dollars are in place. DOT has, I think, realized that their initial cost estimate to build it didn't take into account some of the drainage work that needed to happen in the corridor. If any of you have been out on the corridor, for example, south from Breakfast Hill Road, there's a significant portion of it that's underwater. DOT's estimate for construction to address drainage has increased from just under $1 million to about $2.5 million. But they are able to access additional CMAQ funds to do that. So there's no request to the municipalities to cover construction expenses. Essentially where DOT is now, as we understand it, they have an agreement in principle with Pan Am, but before they pull the trigger on that, they want to make sure that they have partners among the towns to do routine maintenance, because they don't have staff or funding to send people down from Concord to clear culverts or pick up trash, etc. So as Karen indicated, one of the significant changes since the last iteration of the agreement is clarification from DOT that the towns are responsible only for routine maintenance, and that the department would step in if there were a storm-related washout or some other significant capital improvement or major repair that was needed on the corridor.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir?
Well, as I understand from reading information, this is primarily going to be done by a volunteer organization of some kind, the maintenance.
So the construction will be done by DOT, and the towns in signing the agreement are agreeing that they are responsible for maintenance, although the way that maintenance on rail trails happens in most communities in New Hampshire, as well as in northern Massachusetts, is that typically there is a volunteer group that does the bulk of that, mowing and trash pickup and so forth. Our understanding from talking to the town of Windham, for example, is that for the just over 4 miles of rail trail they have, there's about $800 a year in town funds and about 250 hours of volunteer time that go into maintaining that. Similarly, in Salisbury, Mass, the volunteers do the bulk of the maintenance. If there's a tree down, the Public Works Department will send out a chipper and a dump truck, for example, to break that tree up and cart it away. But we have had a sort of regional advisory committee working on this for 10 years now, and are in the process of establishing a regional nonprofit, New Hampshire Seacoast Greenway Alliance, that would do funding development, working towards getting the section from Foss down to Seabrook constructed, but would also be the organizing entity for volunteers to do this work.
So you would basically do the major work on it, and we would just sort of provide cleanup work. What have we got, about 2.3 miles going through Greenland?
Well, actually, it's less than that. My understanding is it's about a mile that's broken up by Rye. My understanding is that there's 3/4 of a mile from Portsmouth to Rye, and then there's a 1/4 mile in Rye, and then there's another 1/4 mile in Greenland, and then Northampton.
Okay.
So maybe that whole section is where
Yeah,
that
so
2
it's
point
a
whatever number.
longer.
And we're talking, what, maybe about $1,000 a mile for estimated for cleanup?
That's the rule of thumb that you hear nationally is $1,000 a mile per year for maintenance. But I think that is assuming that you're using public works staff to do your maintenance work. So I would anticipate it would be somewhat lower than that, given use of volunteers to do the bulk of the maintenance work.
So if we were to put something like this under the Conservation Commission, is something that they might be able to take up? It doesn't look like it's a lot of work involved there, just keeping it clean, but maybe it's, just a thought to throw it out,
Yeah.
Now, how many towns do we have that have subscribed to this?
This actual area, we need 4 towns to commit to the maintenance.
Mm-hmm. How many have?
So we have Portsmouth, Greenland, Rye, Northampton, and then Hampton, actually. And at this point, we have a series of selectmen's meetings over the next 3 to 4 weeks where each town will be taking this up. I believe that Rye and Northampton are meeting next Monday night. Portsmouth is going to put it on their council agenda on the 22nd, and I believe Hampton will be later in the month.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then the last question I had was policing and emergency response. If there are any responses needed to any alleged criminal conduct, or if someone falls and breaks their leg and needs to be transported out, who bears those expenses? Each town?
Each town would bear those expenses. In terms of any sort of enforcement need on trails, I think generally the experience nationally is that you tend to have less enforcement need on a trail that's been developed as opposed to an abandoned rail right-of-way, just based on sort of the good use driving out potential bad use. Sort of an eyes on the street kind of concept with that. But one thing that Salisbury has done with regard to with public safety and enforcement is they've installed small, just 4x4 posts every 1/10 of a mile with 1/10 of a mile written on them to help if somebody were to be out on the trail and crash, they could identify, okay, I'm at mile 4.1 to assist with location for emergency services. I think the intention is that at each at-grade crossing there would be removable bollards put in place to keep vehicles cars or what have you off the trail, but that emergency services could remove those to get an ambulance up the trail to pick somebody up.
So once it's constructed, it will be wide enough for a vehicle, even though it's really reserved for non-motorized transport?
Yes, it needs to be designed in order to support emergency vehicles as well as maintenance vehicles if you needed to get, say, a dump truck up there to remove a tree.
Good, so we don't need any special vehicles in the police department or the fire department to accomplish.
No, and we already have an ATV, so.
When is the deadline when you need to know?
DOT had asked for January 15th. I think that by the end of the month would be adequate. I think that the likelihood is that Hampton may not take this up until later in the month.
All right. So I don't know if you gentlemen want to make a decision now, or if you want to think it over and wait till the next meeting.
I can say that what I want to do is kick it around again, because my biggest problem is most of that trail abuts a Superfund site. So I want to see what we could do to make sure people understood that that water leaving that site is contaminated and not let your animals play in it.
Right, and I spoke to the Commissioner of DOT Direct about this, because it is open for equestrian. We can't have a horse drinking out of Berrysburg.
Yeah,
It's really high. So I requested that it be fenced or protected from the landfill.
And the commissioner agreed to that in the meeting, that fencing be put up adjacent to the landfill and for some distance beyond, so that whether it's horses or dogs or what have you, wouldn't be able to step off the trail. And so that would be installed as part of construction.
It probably wouldn't hurt also to have signage widely fenced that area so that they don't just
Well, there's a big sign as you get close to it that says poison, poison, danger, danger.
Yeah, I walked up there with one of the Northampton selectmen and Northampton's prior town manager once, and that is pretty well.
They got the same
demarked.
problem we do too.
Yeah.
So if it's not tonight, the next meeting is the 21st, and that would be like the end of it, because if all the towns in this section don't agree, then DOT is not going to move forward with Pan Am.
Right. So this has to be 100% agreement.
And the reason for that is that the funding that they're using, this congestion mitigation air quality program, it's funding that has to be used for projects that would improve air quality. And the equation here is that if you build a safe bicycle route, that some number of trips between towns that might otherwise be taken by automobile would be taken on foot or by bicycle. And if they use those dollars to buy the corridor, they then have to build trail on that full section that they buy.
So you can get from point A to point B.
So that they can rationalize there's a route that somebody could take.
Okay. So, again, do you want to chew on this and bring it up in the next meeting, or do you want to make a decision tonight?
I'm ready to go tonight.
I'm ready to go tonight.
I am.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we go forward with the presentation.
To approve the signing of the rail trail
Approve the
agreement.
signing of the rail trail agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Didn't do anything.
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nice job, Scott. Took a long time.
Thanks for calling.
My pleasure.
Perfect.
Okay, liaison reports. Oh, I'm sorry.
Marcia McLaughlin, I was just thinking about, with your approval of that, you mentioned the Conservation Commission, but could I also put forward, you have rec committees, you have various committees. What about creating a rail trail committee instead of putting this on the Conservation Committee? Just something to think
Oh,
about.
yeah, I was just I was just thinking, you know, rather than put it on Paul, to have some kind of a committee out there that would probably,
Right.
it doesn't look like it's a big deal, but, you know, it's just, conservation just fell into, but your point's well taken.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, you know, a lot of companies sponsor a day of cleanup or
Exactly.
whatever,
Yeah.
so that's
Right.
another option.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
I know Timberland does their Servapalooza days,
Yeah, they
a couple
do.
of big cleanup days a year. United Way similarly does their day of
Yeah, they
service.
usually go right across the street.
Okay. All right, liaison reports? Any? None?
Rec committee, appointed a new member tonight.
Okay.
Pickleball has exploded.
Take that up.
Oh, there's waiting lists.
There's waiting lists, and they're looking into getting the basketball court at the school line for pickleball so they can expand it even more, so.
Great.
Great suggestion and a big hit.
Yeah.
That's good.
Now, that doesn't hurt the hardwood floor in the gym?
They're looking into it, that's all I know at this point.
It doesn't any other place that they do it like in Kittery.
Right.
It's not much different than a basketball on the court.
I asked,
I gotta tell you, Paul, by the time you get to be our age, we don't move too fast.
Half the people playing on like me.
And now it's become hugely co-ed. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Sharon has
Yeah.
called and said, take down the notice, we have too many people.
Now, at one point, we mentioned, we have that land on Falls Way, we said about tennis courts, is that a place we could put more pickleball?
We only have $25,000 available for that.
I mean, that's just a suggestion, we do have that big flat piece of land out there.
I can't help you right there because I really don't know that much about pickleball still, but
I
I gotta
I
learn.
think
The
that,
whole person on tennis.
It's just like tennis, only they use a harder ball.
right, the
Smaller
neighbors
court,
would,
smaller court.
Something you and I could play?
Right.
Oh, God, yes. That's only old timers that play now anyway, for God's sake.
right.
I wouldn't say
I
that.
mean, we could look into that, but
Really?
initially we looked at that for a basketball court
Yes.
and the neighbors went ballistic.
Yeah.
They did
But with
not
the age group that would
want,
be going in here, in the time,
you're gonna get beamed up in the head.
That's fine.
Is there a neighborhood association at Falls Way?
Yes.
So we could start the conversation.
I mean, that money's been sitting in there for quite a few years, and every time we make a proposal, they turn us down, this might go in our favor.
Okay. Any other positive liaison reports? That was a good one. Right.
The library committee is working to go forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we get too far beyond the warrant articles, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one being proposed by the school. And this is the one for the $1.4 million essentially. And I just wanted to be careful that people understood why we would have problems with that.
Right. If the article is written for the 1.325 or whatever that number is, for renovations and a new boiler, but the wording that they used was for the total appropriation and to authorize the school board to enter into a lease of up to 20 years. I notified the school business administrator that it was not worded correctly, gave her some suggestions through DRA wording. The max for a lease that doesn't have a clause that you could get out of it, which you can't get out of it if your boiler is already in, is 5 years. You can enter into, she explained to me that they were using a contract purchase, a purchase contract, which the wording is fine, but it still sets up long-term indebtedness for the town, the school. So it still falls into the whole bond article regulations. It's bonds, notes, or any other long-term financial indebtedness.
Of over 100,000.
Right. So a notice would have had to have been in the paper at least 6 days, more than that, 7 clear days prior to the meeting on Thursday.
So this would be kicked out by the DRA then, right?
DRA has kicked it out. The business administrator on Friday sent me an email saying that she has asked DRA to take another look at it.
Interesting.
I concur with what the town administrator is saying, that there's a big procedural problem here, and that they didn't follow bond procedure. But it would also be a problem because they're projecting it to be a majority vote when a bond requires a 60% vote. So I think it's very important at the budget committee tomorrow night that you work this through and understand what the situation is so it can be explained to the people on Thursday night.
Gonna leave that up to you, Paul.
I'm not DRA.
Amy's been working on it, so she will know a lot of the answers.
Okay.
No, this is John Fernando. I've looked at that warrant article. I'm not sure what why they're going the lease route. You're still paying interest, you're still paying a fee, you still do, it's the same as a bond, pretty much.
Their attempt was to avoid the necessary 3/5 vote and public hearings.
Well,
Pretty sure.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but anyways, we'll discuss it at the budget committee and we'll ask them the particulars.
Yep.
And I think that's very important that they have to be very specific with that. And obviously, from a legal standpoint, there has to be a legal justification for that. And that's pretty much what I'm gonna ask.
Equipment leasing is a perfectly valid tool when you use it for something, let's say like a copier.
Yes.
And if an appropriation fails in a subsequent year, you send the copier back, or a truck, or a loader, or a piece of lawn equipment or something. But when you've incorporated these improvements into a piece of real estate, they can't be unincorporated.
Right.
They become real estate, so a non-appropriation clause doesn't work.
Well, that's exactly what didn't make sense to me. I think typically when you do a lease, you're doing it on a capital asset.
Yes.
You're doing it on an asset, and I've never seen anything like this.
Right.
Just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I noticed that the Greenland Budget Committee XXXX, that means you haven't seen this yet?
Correct.
We see it tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the first
Right,
time.
and our warrant says the same thing, because the budget committee can't vote to recommend or not recommend a warrant article until after the public hearing. So they will meet at the conclusion of the public hearing to make those votes.
Are you folks planning on, again, recommending to them that they get their act together a little bit?
We've been after them.
You're welcome to come to meeting and listen to us tomorrow night.
Yeah.
They know how we feel, they're just not moving.
Yeah. Tomorrow you're at 7 and Thursday you're at 6:30?
No, tomorrow at 6:30.
6:30, okay.
No, we're here tomorrow, with school Thursday.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I just wanted to go through the rationale why you're all having difficulty.
Okay. Under new business, let's review the town administrator's report.
The rails to trails, we just discussed, so we really don't need to review that again. This was written after I had attended that meeting. Equalization rate, we have received confirmation from DRA that our equalization rate for 2018 is 95.8. When we concluded the assessment manual during the reval, we were at 98%, which is based on April 1st. Equalization rate is based on sales through September 1st. So we can see that values in Greenland are still continuing to increase. We were at 98%, and 4 months later, we're down at 95.8. So, which means that the values just keep going up. And for revaluation, on Thursday, the Department of Revenue came and spent the day here so that they could complete our revaluation review with all of our files, our exemptions, credits, and current use, and our charitable trusts. They wanted to get that accomplished while I was still here. So that happened all day Thursday. We are complete, we're done, we've passed everything. So we're good for another 5 years.
Yes.
Just for clarification for the record, you've got 99% here, and you were saying 98%.
All right, I was wrong, it was 99 then. We were as close as we could to be, like 100%, and we're already dropping. Workers' comp, we had one employee injured for a potential exposure, but there's been no loss of time. And over the Christmas holidays, we had 3 very generous residents step up and assist 4 different families with Christmas. And I can't express my appreciation for them enough. One of the families has taken care of children for the past 2 or 3 years in a row. This year, they specifically said would like to add in an elderly couple, and gave a very generous gift card for an elderly couple to spend for Christmas.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Questions on?
What was the exposure, what was the potential exposure to?
It was a firefighter exposed to vomit.
Oh.
That's always fun.
Sorry, but that's, it's still an exposure that needs to be reported as a first reported injury.
We'll give that possible bloodborne pathogen.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't go into any further details because then it becomes confidential.
That's not what I was expecting.
Sorry, truth hurts.
Yikes.
Okay,
All right, pay the claim.
right. All right, next item is the veterans credit.
This is for a resident at 61 Bayside Road that qualifies for the all veterans tax credit.
Motion,
I move to approve the all veterans tax credit in the amount of $500 for the resident at 61 Bayside Road, effective April 1st, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Current use release.
This is for 2 Osprey Cove. They subdivided their larger lot that was a little over 18 acres through the planning board for one parcel at 17.24 acres and subdivided a 1.38 acres off from their property. The property is assessed for $174,000, so as a new lot. So the current use release is 17.4. The one problem we had with this is Osprey Cove. We did not renumber when it was changed from Bay Ridge. So now, as a result, we now have 2 Osprey Cove and 2A Osprey Cove because there's already a 3 and a 4 and a 1.
Okay.
But we got, it wasn't anticipated at the time.
Okay, motion,
Move we approve the current use release of 1.38 acres in the amount of $17,400 for 2 Osprey Cove.
Question,
go ahead.
this is a cousin. Does that, am I allowed to vote on this, or?
Yes, because you don't have a pecuniary interest, they're not paying you extra for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Not suggest being paid extra, but.
And you didn't establish the value, I did.
All right, I have a motion. Did I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
2 sheets.
Okay, conservation restriction.
Okay, this is for the property located at 681, 683 Post Road. It's the Berg property. The land in the back is currently in current use. The property owners want to grant the town a conservation restriction so the land cannot be developed.
Question, has he given you a deeded conservation easement?
Not as yet. This
Okay.
was the step 1 to see if they would, if the board would approve it, and then we'd get the actual document.
We don't know if we can approve it till we see the language of the document.
Okay.
So sorry, whatever question you had.
Well, my question is that this property, we looked at it last year in regards to ancient highway or some such gobbledygook.
Yes.
Has that been addressed?
Yeah, this isn't in that area.
It's not.
This is the back area that abuts 95.
All right.
They're basically doing it as an estate planning process so that it can't be subdivided.
Right, and it all depends on what terms he chooses for the conservation easement. And whether who he chooses to hold the reversionary interest. all
Right.
that.
The plan is the town of Greenland and to be kept in its natural state with no maintenance.
Okay, if we want to do that. What that does is requires monitoring, and that usually applies an annual expense.
Okay?
So that's why most towns don't take conservation easements of that type. They have some third party to do the monitoring. Although, I don't know how much monitoring there is out there next to 95. But, still.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the warrant for the current use.
Well, anyway, just to complete that, I would just move to table it until we see the language of the proposed conservation easement.
Hey, good job. Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there any other new business anybody would like to bring up?
I just have a question I'd like to see done. And that Paul being on vacation, mind you, when Paul goes on vacation, he sends out the email, let him know he's on vacation. One thing I hate to do is bother department heads when they're on vacation. Can we get all the department heads when they're not gonna, when they're taking leave, they can let us know that they're not around? Because it's just a personal thing, I mean, I don't like to bother them.
Right, well, Paul does, I do.
Yeah.
Jim Marchese does?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just like to see.
I have no problem if it's a question that you call me and ask.
Yeah, but you're on vacation, I have a problem, that's
If
all.
it's not important enough to
If
call.
God doesn't want us attacking, I'll call you.
I mean, if it's something that you really, I have my phone with me, it's not a big deal.
No, I just don't like to bother people when they're on vacation, especially if it's something that can wait.
I do have, something on the new business. Ran into a little problem today with a new 911 on the road changes that we just did on Friday. A new student moved in.
Oh, that's been taken care of. We sent the
Yeah,
map.
well, I think the next time we gotta make sure the school is part of this thing. A brand new student didn't know the address, they didn't know what bus to put him on.
He used his new address, and the school didn't recognize the name of the street. So they requested that, and we will do that, is that we send them a map that shows old name, new name, instead of just the list of addresses.
Okay.
This happened the last round with my own children. It was a substitute bus driver the day that the signs got changed.
And this was
They drove right by it, and children didn't get picked up.
This kid was, the first day of school was today.
Right, so it's not a big crack to fall in, it needs to get tightened up.
Right.
Right.
That's all.
All right,
Town,
good point.
school, bus, that's.
Okay,
Fixable.
you all have a copy of the packets to be sent out to the residents on Maple Drive and Maple Drive Extension for the next 9/11 hearing, which is on February 4th, okay? And note the budget meeting dates for this week, the 8th and the 10th. And anything else anybody would like to bring up under new business? No? All right. Payroll manifest number 1.
I move that we approve the attached payroll number 1, pay date January 20th, 2019, December 24th, 2018, through and including January 6th, 2019. Gross amount excluding payroll liabilities, $78,303.83.
Okay, I have a
That's
motion.
higher than normal because that does have my severance pay.
That's what?
The severance
Okay, all right.
in my final paycheck.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. General fund manifest.
Move we approve the attached manifest of unpaid bills detail as of January 10th, 2019, in the amount of $552,019.17. This manifest includes the Greenland School District payment of $350,000.
And it also includes for the library's quarterly payment of $74,000. So that's higher than normal too.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Capital Fund Library Manifest.
Okay, that's right there. And the library trustees have requested that this come out of the bond proceeds.
Could you please, as we go through this, explain the accounting procedure again that's being used?
We have one fund as basically one accounting book that is called the Library Capital Fund Project. And is set up based on government accounting standards that capital projects are accounted for separately. That fund, that account, rather than calling it a fund, which is confusing things, that account has two different funding sources. 2.9 million bond, the capital reserve fund. The entire project cost is 3.5 million. Between the CRF and the bond, those proceeds will all be used to accomplish the purpose. The problem that we've run into, it's not a problem, it's a correction, and Selectman Morgan wrote a letter that we sent out to the library trustees because the capital reserve fund is established for the week's expansion, and it established that the library trustees and the Board of Selectmen were agents to expend. The initial few bills that came through initially for the LaValle Bressinger, the library trustees brought to us requesting that they be taken from the capital reserve fund. The board approved, those were all handled appropriately. Back a month or so ago maybe, when we transferred everything that had come out of the, and even if it was coming out of the capital reserve fund, it was paid out of the general fund as required by the trustees of the trust funds, and then they would reimburse us. So the accounting was all handled within the general fund book. So the auditors recommended that we move everything from the general fund accounting to the capital project accounting. So it's basically like a separate company because they wanted that all accounted for separately. Which we did a bunch of these check moving to get it out of one fund and into the other. Where procedurally the board went wrong was we had a consensus vote of the board to take all payments out of the capital reserve fund first before touching bond proceeds. So the few bills that were done like that, we did not request the authority from the library trustees as co-agents to expend from that CRF.
Although we wouldn't have even seen them until they came from the trustees seeking payment.
Correct. But they were just transferred in. Whether or not, and I think it was procedural that there was not enough communication to say, are we taking this from one? What are we taking it from? And so that consensus wasn't probably the most accurate way to handle that.
Okay. And so this document is requesting that it be reallocated away from capital reserve, and I think these two have already been paid.
No, they have not been paid.
So they're brand new.
They're brand new.
And so the request from the trustees is to take them out of bond proceeds.
Correct.
Okay. So what is your recommendation on that?
To me, it doesn't, if the project goes forward as designed, all the proceeds from both funds will be used.
Yep.
If for some reason the project stalls and needs to go back to the drawing board for engineering, whatever, having funds available in the capital reserve fund to do that makes sense.
Although they'd still be available from the bond proceeds too,
Correct.
because it's not tied to any design, it's tied to the purpose.
Right, ultimately, they're both gonna be spent. Right now, the CRF funds are being invested through the trustees of the trust funds.
Yeah.
I do not know what kind of interest rate they're getting. I mean, the
Well, and
market
presumably
is,
the bond proceeds are too.
the bond proceeds are not through the trustees of the trust funds. The bond proceeds are with the Provident Bank in a separate capital fund account at 1.82% interest.
Provident or Optima?
Provident. Optima was the funding source, but Provident gave us the best interest rate.
Okay.
Okay, at a previous board meeting, didn't we vote to use the capital reserve fund first?
And that's that consensus that I was talking about. It wasn't necessarily a vote. It was a consensus, but that's what the board didn't have 100% authority to do without, confirmation from the library trustees as co-agents to expend.
And conversely, the trustees of the library don't have the authorization.
Bingo.
Either without.
Right.
All right, so this is a two-way street here.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Yes, well, I was just going to say that we do continue to request that those two bills be paid from the bond, and very much with Karen's reasoning that if for some reason this stalls, we would just like to retain the capital reserve fund. If for any reason the bond would ever have to go back due to failure to use it all in the 3-year time period that we have, the residual. We have spoken with
If it hasn't been
Optima
expended.
Bank and have had advice from them.
A 3-year term?
If it's not fully expended.
Normally there's a 5-year authorization.
I believe this is 3
years.
Well, no, that's a term perhaps with the lender,
Right.
but it has nothing to do with state law.
No, you have 5 years to obtain your bond, 5 years.
Yeah.
We have the bond. So we have, once you receive the funding, you have 3 years to expend or be in substantial completion.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Brett?
I would like to move that we expend the funds out of the bond proceeds, which is what the trustees of the library have requested.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
May I make
Yes.
one comment? It was always our intention when we began this process to have a bond approved, that the capital reserve fund, in our thinking, would be used up until that point in time when the bond monies were available. And then the bond proceeds would begin to be spent, which is also the expectation of our bond provider, the bank.
All right. Yes, Don?
As a taxpayer, I'd like to ask a question.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing is that you have a capital reserve fund of close to $600,000, and you wanted to add taxpayer dollars again in a bond for the same project. And now you're asking the taxpayers to pay the bills while you keep your little savings account over here just in case something goes wrong. Is that what I'm hearing? In kind of a roundabout way?
Not really. The way the project contract and cost that we've seen, the estimates to build it, is 3.5.
Right.
So those two numbers combined are the 3.5, and so there won't be any money left.
Okay, that I understand, but we're talking at this point in time that there are some issues that may slow this down or may create some, God forbid, that we don't get it at all, because I am a proponent of the library. I'm just confused a lot with what's going on, or the library expansion. And that's, as I listen to this conversation as a layman, okay, I hear that basically, that's what you're saying. You want to save the money that the town put away previously, that we've already paid our taxes on.
Right.
Okay, it's all paid for, is in a fund, and then we borrowed money. So you want to start spending the borrowed money and keep the money that's already been accumulated and paid for by the taxpayers. And if anything should prolong this, that half is getting money, but we're paying taxes. So, and if the bond should happen to go back, we're paying the interest. Now, I guess the other thing too is if the bond is sitting there, we pay an annual interest whether we use it or not. Okay, then that helps.
May I just ask one other question? When you all voted or a consensus agreement to spend the capital reserve fund before tapping into the bond monies, what was the reasoning on that? I never heard any comment the night that you all decided to do that.
I believe it just made sense to us to take the money that has already been set aside and use that first. Now, maybe logically, if you think about it, you could probably say, well, leave that money in the capital reserve fund to earn interest. We're paying interest on the bond, which is also earning interest also, all right? And so if I'm to think it out, I would probably say use the money in the bond first before you use the CRF. You know, when I really get down to the nitty gritty, that kind of makes sense to me. I'm just saying that back then, when we had made that consensus, that the board had said, use the capital reserve fund first. I don't know if there's really any difference.
I'll be very clear for myself. Back at the time, I thought that it was more appropriate to use savings first and use borrowed money second. That we're not out here for leverage. You know, we're here, why would we use borrowed money when in fact we have it available to us?
Right.
So that was my thinking, and I'm still of that opinion.
Yeah.
It's 50-50, isn't it? It's one, in terms of how it's, what you're using, Paul. You know, I'm not a financial person, so.
No, I understand that this is a judgment call,
Mhm.
but that was our thinking at the time, and I'm not persuaded that we should be using borrowed money yet, but that's my opinion.
I have a question for you, Cameron. If the project gets slow, they hit the three-year mark, the bank wants their money back.
If construction has not begun.
It's
It's within the arbitrage rules.
Yeah.
Say that again, could you?
In 3 years, if the project hasn't begun,
Mhm.
the bank could, and they don't necessarily have to, but the bank could call the bond, because then it would show that we were violating arbitrage rules, that we had taken a loan to earn
Okay.
money.
All right, yeah.
What would be the cost at that 3-year point?
I don't know.
Well, no, it would just be a call. It would be,
They would call the 2.9.
you would be paying back the principal of the bond, plus
Interest to that
any earned
date.
interest.
And there's no penalty for that, if I remember right.
No prepayment, no prepayment.
Prepayment.
Yeah.
Right, so, for the record, my thoughts were to spend it out of the reserve fund back then, and my opinion has not changed. Say it's a judgment call, you look at it from one side, I look at it from the other. To me, it's very simple, I'm a simple-minded guy. I got a lot of money in this pocket, and I only have a little bit in this pocket. I feel better when I have a lot of money in this pocket all the time, and this one can kind of spend and make a little more and kind of stay right around where it is. That's my simplified reasoning. That's it.
Yes.
Hi, Dane Peters from Cushman Way. Using the bond money, bond funds, to complete a project that was passed by the town to have this project move forward and be done, doesn't that sort of incentivize both the town and the trustees of the library to get the job done? In other words,
No, not to me. It does not. It doesn't make it go any faster or any slower to me. It doesn't change my opinion at all.
It doesn't change your opinion, but it could make it go faster if we use bond money.
Why?
Well, because now we're invested in it. If you
We're already invested in it. We're already invested close to $200,000 engineering. We're in, it's on, and it's all gonna get spent sooner or later. To me, I wanna spend a little pile before I break into the big pile. That's it. And I'm not, I mean, that's.
But is it on behalf of the selectmen, this project is going to go through?
I can tell you right now, and I've said this all along, all right? I'm not signing anything else. I'm not signing up over any more funds because I still have a building inspector that doesn't think it's a safe project. I have a police department doesn't think it's a safe project. I have a fire department doesn't think it's a safe project, and the planning board has a lot of issues. And I've been very open about this, and honestly, if I hear back from them, and they all turn around and say, Vaughn, and even, I did not vote for this, all right? But even if they turned to me and said, Vaughn, this has all been taken care of, I'll sign it. I don't have a problem, because that's my job, all right? As a selectman, I'm not supposed to, you know, I'm supposed to do what the town wanted me to do. But I'm still, and I almost sound like I'm in an echo chamber. The safety is the most important thing to me.
I appreciate what you're saying. And when was the last time you've been to the library?
When was the last time I've been to the library?
Yeah.
Inside the library?
Yeah.
About a year ago.
Okay. If you go in there, talk about safety. If you go down to the children's section, down the stairs, I mean, it is just...
That, you know, for you to turn around and say, this isn't safe now, so we're going to keep on making it not safe.
This is going to make it safer, period, because what exists now is a very unsafe situation. We have kids going into that building every day. Parents bringing their little children, and it's not safe. In the bathroom that the staff has to use and the public has to use, it's a disaster.
And we could very easily send the building inspector in there and shut the place down. So we don't do that.
Why?
Why? Why, do you think we should?
Well, if you're talking about not pushing the project forward because of safety issues that are certainly going to make it better, why would you sit back and let it continue to operate?
It's not going to make it. To me, that is not going to make it better. It's still going to be you don't build an unsafe building.
Okay.
Period. All I'm saying is let these people, the people that we hire in this town to make this town safe, come back to me and say, look, we sign off on it, it's safe. Then I'm signing off on it. I will do it. I don't have a problem. I've said that to Marcia. I've been very open with her about this, and this is where I stand. There are safety issues that have not been answered.
But as far as the expenditures, just remind me, Karen, as far as the expenditures are concerned, do the trustees and the selectmen have to agree, or they have to approve it together, as opposed to the trustees can go ahead and spend money anyway, or the
No, it has to be trustees and the selectmen.
From the capital reserve fund.
Out of the capital reserve fund?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, may I, Craig McLaughlin, we will arrange for a meeting soon. We are hopeful that the planning board, police chief, and fire chief, and town inspector can all show up at the same place at the same time so that we can get over this. We will prove that in every instance, the new design is safer than what you have now.
Mm-hmm.
It's safer. We'll prove it. So we're going to try to get the planning board to give us a date when you can get all those people together.
Okay.
Now, please, with respect to the planning board, I've been to the last 3 planning board meetings, and we've just been advised each time that the library wasn't ready. And so I haven't heard at all before this evening, Craig, that someone wasn't able to come. I'm just telling you what we've heard at the planning board level.
Right. So we've responded to 53 points from the town, understanding that none of the 53 are binding. Nevertheless, the project has been making its best efforts
to address these issues. We're responding to town regulations which do not apply to a municipal building. I hope everybody understands that.
Yes.
Okay, so we're doing our best. I think that the town inspector has, his list is 82 items. Give us a break. Okay, I mean,
What I'd like to do is.
we're doing our best here, but gentlemen, these lists are not going away. And we can prove to you that the new design is safer. We're sprinkling the building, okay? Safer. There's more room for getting a fire truck around the parish house than you have today. It's safer. We're addressing the entrance and exit of the driveway so that it will be safer. All right, so just let's have the meeting and let's get beyond this.
Agreed. Have the meeting, that's fine. That's all I have to hear.
And as you know, the next regular planning board meeting is the 17th. And I don't know if a request has been given to the police chief or the fire chief to come to a meeting on the 17th. And Charlotte is here every day to help schedule the planning board meeting and what is being dealt with at the meetings. We haven't had a case in the planning board in 6 months. So I'm sure that we could make time on the evening of the 17th to hear the presentation you would like to give.
Who's responsible, Marcia McLaughlin, whose responsibility is it to get the police chief and the fire chief there?
Well, certainly we can, from the select board, encourage them that if a date has been selected, please attend.
I will definitely encourage them.
Sure.
I'm a liaison to both of them, and I will definitely encourage them to appear.
Do the same with our building inspector.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does that sound reasonable?
The planning board, a couple of the members of the planning board have assured us that they're willing to work with us as we go through this process. We haven't heard that from everybody. So to the extent that we can get everybody in the same room and go through these issues, we're all for it.
Okay, and I'll be there myself. I will.
Okay.
And again, the regular meeting is on the 17th, and they meet the first and the third Thursdays of each month. That's their regular meeting dates.
Now, please understand that the feedback we're getting from the state is that we have a safe design. All right, so some of this is local, and I'll put it politely.
And it wouldn't hurt if you got that feedback in writing to bring that up at that meeting.
Okay. So, 17th, you're talking about January?
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk to Charlotte.
Yeah, please, because we just had a meeting on the 3rd, okay, and there was no case, and the entire planning board meeting lasted 30 minutes. So, please, work with Charlotte. If the 17th can work, let it work. And if it can't, then the first meeting in February.
I'll just make one more comment, and that is that as far as state law is concerned, we satisfied this requirement last August. So we are continuing to cooperate. We're bending over backwards to cooperate, but there has to be an end to this.
Okay.
Well, and just on that point, yes, you satisfied the requirement of going to the planning board and hearing their feedback. You still have outstanding requests for permits from DOT and from DES.
Correct.
So,
okay. All right.
That's all well and good.
Anything else?
No, we haven't, because we requested that it be paid out of the bond. There's a
And I
motion
would-
on the floor.
Motion in a second.
I would say that I would ask my fellow board members let's vote in the affirmative to this. It's not costing us money, and it's what the trustees want. Let's give them something here. It's all going to be paid for.
I can't do it. I'm not wavering.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, I have a motion. Did I get a second?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion fails.
So you're gonna, is there a motion to take it out of the capital reserve fund?
I would make that motion.
I would,
Because I believe that they are bills that they can show under the contract are
Yeah.
appropriate and bills to be paid.
is that, would that, does that,
I would second that motion. I don't have a problem paying bills.
All right, so it's not really being addressed here, but in discussions with Optima, who we understand is still holding the bond, there are certain expectations they have on rate of expenditure. All right, from a project standpoint, I don't want to be in a position where somewhere down the road, they are claiming that we have not lived up to the expectations on expenditures of the bond, and then have them considering pulling the funding, and then the selectmen have to go through a process once again with a project midway. That's a sure way for us to exceed the budget and make it a more expensive project, if the funding somewhere mid-project is interrupted.
okay,
Then,
go ahead.
question, are those expectations in writing anywhere so we know what a schedule they're looking at?
Yes, they're in the bond document.
Which I've never seen.
It was emailed to everybody, it was attached, but I can pull those pages. It's about a 30-page document that was sent to all of you a couple of times.
Actually, I don't think I ever received, but okay, I'm happy to take a look at it. And what you're doing really then is you're requesting that you disperse in accordance with that schedule. Now, that's a rational request.
Well, that's,
Okay.
maybe we weren't clear enough in the reasoning behind this, but yes, there are expectations on rate of expenditure of the bond funds by the bank.
Okay, and that I have not seen before. That is a new fact, and that's important.
And I would hope that maybe that fact would encourage the selectmen to reconsider their decision.
Can you tell us here in the very short term what that expectation is?
Yes, it deals with arbitrage, and some of the paragraphs dealing with that, they talk about certain thresholds. I recall 3 years. I recall a different one at 18 months. And I think there's another one even earlier than that.
Karen, if you have the document. Okay. I did this probably at the back somewhere.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring a copy.
But the selectmen received a copy, Karen?
Yes. Vaughn, just while he's looking at that, let me state to you that we have already, the trustees have already voted to have those funds paid from the bond, not from the capital reserve. We are not authorized to make a change
Right,
in
I
that.
understand that. Let me ask you another question. Okay, you wouldn't be able to do this. If you have to go back to you again, if we said, okay, take it from the CRF, you would have to go back and
To the library
get
trustees.
authority to take it from the CRF.
Yes.
My other question is if this was taken from the CRF, are you in violation of the, this particular payment? Would you be in violation of the agreement with the?
No.
With the bank? No, you wouldn't be. Okay.
Well, if the library trustees and the selectmen have to agree to this, how do we come to that consensus? I mean, there are 5 library trustees, there are 5 selectmen. I mean, how do we come to a decision?
Well, you come to a decision, in my opinion, again, let's see what that meeting turns out on the 17th. If that meeting turns out and I've got...
Oh, excuse me, no, I'm just talking about this payment that we're making now.
Oh, right now.
Right,
Yeah.
because we, as the trustees of the library, and you as selectmen, we have to come together in order to pay these bills. Now, how are we going to do that?
Okay.
Well-
I can give you the answer to the question that we were looking at. I'm on page 3 of the portion of the bond dealing with no arbitrage and tax certificate. And this is paragraph 6, what they call temporary period exceptions. Okay? You can invest your gross proceeds, which is being done. However, you have to spend 85% of the net proceeds within 3 years. Okay? However, you also have to incur within 6 months of the date of issue a substantial binding commitment to expend at least 5% of the proceeds on the issue. Okay, so that's 2.9 million. And that would be what? 290,000 divided in half.
150,000.
About $150,000. Okay, within 6 months. And of course, this was taken out when? Late October?
The date would be on the front page.
October 26th.
Okay, and so we used up essentially 2 months, and so it has to be done in April. And how much of the bond proceeds have been used to date?
None.
Okay,
Because
so,
the consensus of the board was to move everything that had been taken from bond to CRF.
okay, now we have the fact that says if we don't spend 150 grand, we got a problem. Okay, now, which is not something that we have ever gone over in detail, but that's a key fact. Okay,
I make a motion that we revote on this, given the new information.
given that new information, I would change my mind. Okay, because it is a real project. Okay, and we shouldn't incur something like this with these various penalties that was avoidable for this reason. Okay, but I would just say this is nothing that we have ever gone over in detail before, so it's a new fact.
But we did have that information from.
But I don't think any of us understood it.
We discussed it as a board.
Yeah.
Well, basically, most of us read it about a year ago.
I still have it.
Okay.
Well, I have a motion on the floor, I don't know if there's a second or not.
Okay, I have a motion. Jim's made a motion.
Take it from bond proceeds due to new information.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Any further discussion?
Based upon the new information, I would vote in favor of your motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. All opposed? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right? Okay.
Okay, and please work with Charlotte, and we should be able to get this started into discussion on the 17th.
Okay. Any other business to come before?
Go ahead.
The board?
Just a point of information on the 300th. We have gotten the banners, and we made one attempt to get them behind, but unfortunately the wind was blowing pretty heavy and destroying the day that we had scheduled. So we're still pursuing that fact. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen this week.
That's putting those banners up?
Yeah.
You want to put, you want to put them up now?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, starting now.
Do you have a way of putting them up? Do you have-
We've got a
Got a bucket truck.
Bucket truck? Okay.
This cost us no money.
Excellent. All right.
That's the bill we can pay.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Just one last thing.
Oh, go ahead.
You know, I think it really is important, as Karen is about to end her full-time employment with us. You know, I would like to say thank you very much for your service. You know, appreciate all of that and wish you the best in the future in whatever new endeavor that might turn out to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Potentially, City of Rochester.
Mhm.
We'll see.
Don't join any committees up there that pick the box up.
Well,
No, it's
that I-
the deputy, it's the deputy city manager.
Okay, and a heavy finance role.
Yeah.
And they could use it.
So we'll see.
Aren't they-
That's the only one that's
they're
really
the
open.
manager, aren't they? Rochester is.
It's a city.
Yes.
It's a city manager and a council. It's not Board of Selectmen meetings.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Can I tax your legal line?
Yes.
Tomorrow night, my original intention is to make a motion that we do not support the Article 2 of the school warrant. But I
Yes.
guess I can't legally do that till Thursday, is that correct?
After
the hearing.
That's correct.
Okay.
But, depending
I think
upon,
we're going too smooth there for a while.
depending upon what DRA says,
Generally,
they
that's why
may
everyone
take it
leaves
out.
when we get to
DRA
manifest,
may
because
say
it
that
goes
it's
like
an
zoom,
illegal
zoom,
article.
zoom.
I'm just trying to figure out the lease thing.
Yes.
How do you lease windows? How do you lease air
Take
conditioning
this
units?
blonde one.
How do you lease a furnace? I mean,
That's not a sign.
I mean, that's, when I got the draft, well, here's the sneaky thing that bothered me most of anything else. When we got a copy of the draft at our last meeting, it was on the second page, that article. Now it shows up as number 2 on the copy that Charlotte sent out.
It's so worded so badly, it's not, it can't go anywhere.
Every lease I've dealt with, been about 3 times the interest in the normal loan would pay.
All righty.
So that means tomorrow night we gotta sit there and listen to all that crap.
Oh, no, it's gonna be the arrogance. That's what I can't see.
What?
Randy's arrogance.
Oh, well, Tim and I went at it the first night,
Yep.
and I've ignored him since then, so that's just the way it is.
Just so you know,
No, you're right, he's a pain in the
what I'm trying to do is get some type of a thing out in front here like they do with the library. And so I don't know if we can get a better picture of this, but maybe that's,
John could help you with all of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And to me, the other part that I want to emphasize for Thursday night is, if we don't proceed in an
There are things
orderly way
that
to
bother
fix
me.
the fire department,
I attend these meetings by having, as soon as she puts out the minutes, I read the minutes to see if everything shows up, okay?
department
And
goes
then,
down.
Did we turn off the recorder?
Yes.
Oh, we did, okay. All of a sudden, it dawned on me that, ooh, I don't think we shut
No, I
that
didn't.
off.
and then,
If it goes dark, then at that point, everyone gets a bill for $2,000.
you still here?
I think I shut it off.
Okay, we're gonna aim for February 7th, because I've got the fire department coming in on the 17th.
Okay.
So they're gonna need the whole meeting
Fine.
for the safety thing, but we're gonna try to just keep it intimate.
Well, I mean, the point is, this idea that the planning board has stopped them from coming.
That's not correct.
That's what I essentially was telling them,
Yeah,
and
that's,
that, you need to get in.
they're the ones who couldn't make
Their minutes.
the December meeting.
post it.
They could not make it, not us. They
That's
couldn't
what
make
you told
it.
us all along too.
Yeah, it wasn't them, it wasn't us, it was them.
Number 1, number 2.
So,
So anyway, Charlotte's done a great job in this thing right here. Did you